Hello, everybody. Welcome to the show. Bass and Bonsai, back in the house. If you like this kind of video content, hit the like button. If you haven't subscribed to Bass and Bonsai, please do so. We could always use the company. But anyway, this is geared towards the PSA Dagger owners. If you've purchased a Dagger and you have a Gen 5 or Gen 4 for that matter slide you want to work on, put on it, how you can go about doing that. I've had, I believe the Facebook group I'm on that has, I guess I'm on 3 or 4 Dagger groups, but PSA Dagger, I think, is the name of the one I'm mainly on. Several questions when they see me. I posted some pics with the Glock 19X slide on one of these daggers, and they're like, oh, those fit? Like, no, not exactly. They fit, but there's things you have to do. So this video is to cover that and a few other kind of how you can cross back and forth barrels. Not barrels. As far as I know, all the barrels fit like that as a Gen 5, and it fits in all the 3s and all that. But the slides to the frame, you can swap back and forth. You can put an older Gen 3 on a Gen 5, or if you've converted your Dagger to take a Gen 5 and you want to go back to a Gen 3, then there's an adapter. So we're going to talk about that, cover all that stuff in this video. So when you get the Dagger, it'll come like this. So I can't really show you putting it together, but let me just grab one that's already together. So when you have, and everything that you're seeing before you is cleared. So when you have a stock Dagger, it looks like that, and there is honestly some gappage in there, but I've tightened this one up a little. If you go too tight, you can go too tight. You get this to like 1911 style tolerances, and you almost you could create some malfunction. So you can tighten them up a little bit, and I'll maybe put a video out on that at a later time. I know I'm aiming it at me, but it's kind of parts and pieces. So you get, well, I'm aiming it above my head. I'm aiming it at the camera, but you get that kind of deal with the stock one. So I'm going to pull the trigger. Take this back apart. So what you have to do, because if you take a stock one, and here we have a stock. First of all, the stock Gen 5, that won't work. That's out for sure. So you'll need a Gen 3 width, right? If you see how wide those are, you'll need a Gen 3 to fit inside, even down in here after you do the mod I'm going to show you. But then you get this adapter piece. So these basically come apart. I guess I got to go into detail. I can't do it for you, but I'll show you. Basically, you push this down. There is a hole in there. You run like an Allen wrench or something in there. Then you unscrew that. You'll get this. It's like 12 or 15 bucks off eBay. Other places have it. You're going to need to put that on a Gen 3 guide rod assembly. And then you'll put that on your Gen 5 instead of this guy, because this guy will not work on the daggers. So then once you have that like that, you're still not done, because if you go to put that on, what you have happen then is it hits here. Like, that is too big. So what you have to do, and I'll show you the tools I use. I can't do it for you, you know, like, so what you'll do, and I'll show you where you do it at the very front. It's really just a little bit at the very front of the Dagger, and then along this channel, if you can make out where I've cut. So along this little channel, you're taking out the crease, and a little bit, just a little bit along the bottom, at the very bottom. If you guys can make out, maybe at that angle, you can see where I've done it. So here's stock, still only Gen 3, not 4 or 5. Here's 4 or 5, and you can go back to 3, as I'll talk about in a second. So to get that is pretty simple for me anyway. And you can get the tool if you have a Dremel or some sort of drill bit or whatever, and I can't remember the exact size of this one, but it is almost And this is a common Dremel, comes in kits and stuff at Walmart, Lowe's, Home Depot. It is almost the perfect size. So you'll basically put this back on, and I'll put it on this one to show you how I just sized it up. So I put it on, and then I simply take a pencil, hold it centered because it's not centered yet. Take a pencil, outline that. So you're going to want to cut down to almost that point. Pop that off. And you may be even able to see just a slight touch of a pencil outline. You won't cut quite to the pencil, but you'll get close. And this can be as pretty or as just however you want it. You just need to get that slide to go all the way in there without dragging. So that's a good angle there. You can kind of see how I just channeled it out until it'll go. So let me put that in and show you what that looks like. Where's the, oh my God. Oh, it's already on it. So when you get done, now this one, the 19X does not, like it does stick out just a hair. Now I probably need to cut just a hair more, but what I found is that it's real free right there. Then right at the end, it actually tightens up just a hair. So I'm almost using that kind of as a final little lockup point to hold it. It should not be any issue, and it works just fine. So this fits on there very good. But let's say you want to go back. You're like, oh, okay, I still want to use my stock, and we'll use this one for example. I want to use a stock narrower, and as you can see the difference. So much bigger that is. You want to go back with the stock one, you're like, I'm going to put the stock one back on. Now you can, it'll go right back on, and everything's fine. Problem is, now you're left with the gap. You're like, oh, that looks weird now. But somebody, however many years ago or whatever, has figured that out too, because right here, this will just slide on right up in place of that. Before you put your guide rod on, the Gen 3 guide rod, you put it back in. I can't really show you because I don't know what YouTube will and won't let me do. But then when you put it on, it now creates the same size as what a Gen 5 is. So now we're back to that. Now if I was going to run this one, I would want to cut that just a hair more, because my lockup is a little tighter with this slide. And that is one thing, when you've kind of done what I've done, I almost have each one of these now tuned, which you can do. You know, a lot of people say it'll mess up reliability, which it really doesn't. If you know what you're doing, you can like fit your barrel and slide together. But yes, the ability to just swap them all around, you're limiting that, because you're taking out some of that play and slop, and therefore when you go to switch stuff around, tolerances maybe, it's usually like too tight if you end up putting something on. But so that's just and it's really two, if you have a few other guide rods, it's really just two parts. It's well, it's a Gen 3 guide rod with that piece, and then it's this piece going back the other way, putting that up onto the slide, then the Gen 3 guide rod to go back. It's pretty simple. And then the cutting, which with the Dremel, honestly, that is a very, on the Dagger, I'm not sure, I have not tried it on a true Glock, but you're not affecting, this is just really considered just a dust cover. It's, in all honesty, other than holding the light, if that wasn't there, the firearm would still do what it's going to do. It's this everything in here is what adds the, anyway, if you're like worried about as far as even reliability or any of that kind of issue, it's not an issue. So I had a couple other questions, because then if so the Glock performance trigger, like a Gen 5 internals, you guys have probably seen, like if you're going to put I guess a Gen 5 trigger, or you're trying to put a Gen 3 onto the Gen 5 frame on a true Glock, then the back plate is different. So there's a Gen 3. See how that is? And I think every other one of these is either a Gen 5 or been cut. So then, yeah, this one was a Gen 3, and I cut it out. But what's funny is, and I can't actually show you the whole process. You see, I only have one of these green frames. That is the Glock performance trigger, which is basically the same as the Gen 5, this thing right here. And that is a Gen 3. But for whatever reason, now I have to lift it right at the end and then drop it back down. This one fits right on it. I can't really explain that. You're supposed to change it, but that's an aluminum one, and I hadn't messed with it. And I actually put it on the first time and didn't realize that was the one. I'm like, oh, it will work. So there's an extra little hiccup you'll go through, but it can work. But if you just, and I actually have one of these I've cut, and I do recommend this if you're going to be messing around with your, if you've come to that point, don't let me talk you into messing around with your, if you don't feel comfortable, but if you're going to get to that point, you'll need to make one of these to where when you're working on it, you can see internally, you know, what's going on in there is your, and I recommend doing this anytime you mess with, especially going from 3 to 5, 5 to 3, back and forth, or anytime you're just putting a slide on, unless it's a, you know, dagger slide or a Glock to a Glock slide, you'll probably want to double check to see where your, you know, where your, how much of this is touching onto that, or I better show you on one that's cruciform, which most of you guys will have. You need to make sure that there's enough of that writing on that, and if you know if the tolerances are acceptable or not. So, which I've done to like all these. Now, there is no way, as far as I've seen, or I would want to do like the Gen. Some of you are like, I want to run the newer style in a dagger. You can't. It's just, it's too. You would have to take out way too much material, which would weaken, and I'm sure, 100% sure, would lead to a failure if you tried to widen up a dagger to accept the bigger. And even this is out of the Gen 4, out of the shadow systems. It's too big to, the spring itself isn't, but the keeper, like right here, is just a little bit bigger than the Gen 3. You can see that it's just a little bit bigger round. If this is the only one you had, you could shave that down, like to make it, like that's all it's really lacking from being, it's pretty much the same thing. It already has that piece on it, and it's just bigger here, but it's the same, the spring size around, it's the same. So if those of you that are wondering, the shadow systems, so let's just take the shadow systems, and this isn't the barrel I'm running in this because it is a ported barrel in a slide with no port, so you would not want to do that. I just got it stuck in there. Kind of in case I want to talk myself into buying one of these, you can get the Zafari Precision. Actually, you can get the Op Mod one for like 120 bucks off Optics Planet right now. But anyway, if you want to run this with that, and you're questioning that, like, well, could I buy a Gen 5 for my shadow systems if I wanted to, or if I have one? I mean, you could try it if you already have one. But I'll show you that It does work. But that's because they're more or less based on they say Gen 4 are what the shadow systems are based off of. But this does fit. And now it fits very tight. I don't know. It does work, but it's a very tight fit. Anyway, if you have any questions, I want to put this quick one out there for if you're the confusion over that. And if you're leery of cutting that out, working with the Dremel, then no, the Gen 5s, you'll stick with Gen 3 for the daggers. But I know how it goes. Sometimes you'll be like, oh, you'll jump the gun, find a good deal on one on wherever, and you purchase it, and it gets there, and you're like, oh, that's a Gen 5. So almost everything well, the pin's assembly is completely different from a Glock to a Dagger. The trigger housings will interchange. That's actually the Gen 5 style. Like you put it in, and it's so more narrow that you have to kind of lift up just a hair to get the pin to fall right. Let me show you what I'm talking about. With the shadow systems, and I'm not sure which one, I guess they do make, hang on. I already have parts here so I can show you. 1 minute. Oh my God, I got too many parts. So basically here is a stock PSA one. See how much wider it is down here? And there's another stock PSA when I robbed the extractor. So here is the shadow systems, which is basically the same thing, right? Show one. They do have a different extractor. See that? That is different. But basically, this shadow system's same exact one as the Dagger. Gen 3, I think. This is the newer style. See, and the only difference is really, there's the two shadow systems, is right here. They narrowed it up on the newer one, so when you do put them in, they'll fit right in, but they kind of have room to work around, so you do have to line up to get the pin in there. So you can't, I say you can't, you're not supposed to go the other way, for sure, because they're just too big. But somewhere, well, I don't know what I did with it. I don't think I have it in one of these. Hang on a second. Let me look. I thought I had somewhere. I maybe threw it away. I thought I had one where I cut down on the Dagger ones to fit in my shadow system, just to see how it would go. So when it comes to the Daggers, you know, triggers, and of course I have, it seems to me anyway, that this is a Gen 5 trigger. Basically it's on the performance triggers, and I switch it out and it's on the regular one. You can have an issue right in here. Like I found that I think what will keep some of the Gen 5s from working right on the Dagger, I would literally have it, it would let this catch. So as I get out of here, I'm pretty much done talking about the crossover stuff. If you have any questions, ask in the comments below, and I'll try to answer those. But if you're having issues with your pin, wanting to, because I have seen that in previous Dagger videos, they talk about this trigger roll pin working its way out when you're shooting it. This here is what is kind of, I guess it was in the original design to keep that from going out, because if you I guess I don't know how much I can actually do on camera or just talk about, but if you look at where your spring is, the little spring that holds the tension on this, you need to make sure it's over there and this is in the slot that is on that pin, because you can put these in to where you can push them right in and out, but if you take your time and get this to line up right, you almost feel it like click in, and it locks that pin in. So anyway, sometimes you got to finagle these until you get it right. I guess I could do a little quick test here to see how many of mine that I've got on the table right now anyway. Yeah, this one. Yeah, it's stuck in. Even on the shadow, and all of them are the same way. There may be an easier view of the shadow systems here. But I try to make sure that that little spring thing is right above almost. And a lot of times I'll start out with it. I don't know if I got a spare. I don't think I have any spare ones of those. I'll just show you. You guys know what I'm talking about. But anyway, that's what kind of, like on the Dagger, if you decide, I'm not telling you to, and you got a roll of duct tape and you want to take it apart, I'll show you what you do need. You can get these at Walmart. A set of like 5 of these. This one size right here is a perfect size. Goes right in these holes. It's almost the exact same size. You want to drive this pin and this pin out with this. This I don't recommend driving out. You can actually finagle this by putting your finger here and pressing down here and just working it until it'll let you push this right through. You don't necessarily have to use this one. You could even use this and then push that through there, and same thing putting it back together. You don't necessarily have to hit this with a rubber mallet or any of that stuff. These roll pins you do. And then on a Glock, you will, they come with a tool, or you have a tool that you just push those pins. Like with this one, kind of works the same way. If you look on the shadow systems, the top here, this actually catches in there. You can see the little cutout. That keeps it from walking in or out too, as well as this pin. And then this one's just a plastic pin that just holds that in. It's not really holding any, it just keeps it in place. It's not keeping, it fits in here down in and tight. That just holds it down, and there's no pressure, so that's just a plastic pin. Same thing with these 2 pins back in here. They're just kind of holding that stuff there. There's not a ton of pressure on them, to where these actually there is a little more. But I mean, it's not huge. This is where a lot of your force is going when the slide goes back. So anyway, any questions, comment below. I'm gonna get out of here. I thought I'd just try to throw that quick video together for you guys that had questions about that. It can be very confusing until you decide you want to do 5 Dagger builds at once, and then you're going through the whole gamut of stuff. And then this thing, lastly, I guess since it's there, if you don't know what that is, I can't show you how to put it on. I guess I could show you where it goes. This goes right there. Now you can't, that's the only downside to this. If you put this on there and then go back to putting a Gen 3 on a Gen 5, you can't put this little buffer on. But the Gen 3s, they sell these little buffers. It's just a little rubber buffer thing that you put on the slide, and then you put, and I'll stick it on there so you can see it. I just can't do it on camera because I'm being unsafe. Take your Gen 3 guide rod and put it in exactly like you normally would. Then you end up with that. Now what that's supposed to do is where's my actual Gen 3 still? So when the front of your slide comes all the way back and bottoms out, I call it bottoms out, but hits Okay, now it's bottoms out. So when it comes all the way back as far as it can before it's going to go back up, there's just a little extra cushion rather than, you know, too solid. You got just a touch of a buffer point, which I have not even tried these yet, and I don't know. I don't know if I guess I should try them with or without, and just I don't even know if you can tell the difference on feel or not. But I figured they were like $4 or $5 for five. I don't know. They were basically less than $2 a piece on eBay. I think it was eBay. Could have been AliExpress, but I think it was eBay. Anyway, so I figured, what the heck? This thing even worked. This is not, and this is not the slide for this. It'll go right on it, but that's not for this bigger gripped one. That's actually, this is intended for, where is it at? Oh, this dude right here. That's already set up with one on it. So this one, the green one, and then this one I can set up like that. So I don't know if you can see down in there or not, but when that fires and goes, that little, it'll have just a little bit of a buffer. So yeah, this is actually the one that is meant to go on it. So it fits tight, like, and I'll talk about that. The reason I do some adjustment to just tighten it up some. You're gonna, you don't want to go. I've actually gone too crazy. Then it actually can start having some performance issues the other way. But when I pull that trigger, a stock, I even did it with the shadow system. Now the shadow systems was used when I got it, so I don't know if it was a little starting to wear or what. But then daggers with the stock dagger slide or these aftermarket ones, what was happening is, especially with the red, you can't really tell with the irons, but with the red dot, when I was coming in and before I would, like I'm bringing it to the wall and how Glock has that little bit of movement, I was literally watching the slides were moving a little bit. So I'm like, I got to get rid of that. So that's why I take away. And plus I want it a little low. There's not much. There's a little bit of gappage there, but not much. But there's still no performance issue. If you try to tighten this rail up as tight as what some, I guess we'll call it steel frame or just all metal, and with more of a rail on them, to where they're just super tight, then you'll have the few things happening. But the biggest thing is you can have this literally too close to your cruciform, like it's just too packed. This is too tight to that if you get too crazy. And anyway, so that's it. Stay tuned, a lot more coming. Get out, go bass and bonsai, whatever you do, have fun doing it, I guess, and be safe about it. See ya.